This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. Hard to believe it's September. This year has just flown by, and who would have thought that with school expected to start next week that we'd still be in lockdown. It was encouraging to read that at least in Crook County, they'll be allowing kindergarten through third to go to the classroom again. So let's hope that happens soon in the rest of the state and we can get our kids back to school. It's so needed for normalcy and education, obviously, too. It's real important. But today we're going to talk about a number of things. The first thing I wanted to talk about as people are still coming in is the contingent right to purchase document. And we're going to get heavy into our multiple offers. But I do want to share this document. You would be surprised how often we are still using this in such a crazy market as what we're experiencing. But the contingent right to purchase document, a lot of people are confused about it. We've had this document for a period of time. This year it was changed. So if you look at the contingent right to purchase, this is the notice. Excuse me, I got the wrong one up here. Let me get the red one. This one. This is the contingent right to purchase addendum. So when you have a client, a buyer, who needs to make an offer and they have a property to sell and they cannot purchase unless they sell this property, this is when this addendum is used. And the property is not yet in contract. So this is basically the offer is contingent on the sale and closing of the buyer's property located at, and this is where you write in where it's at, and they may not accept it. And also note that the buyer may not accept a contingent offer on the sale of the buyer's property without permission of the seller. So in other words, your buyer gets a contingent offer on their property. This needs to be, the seller has to approve this because it's the house of cards scenario. This sale, it's contingent upon this sale, contingent upon that sale. So it's a problem. So the status of a buyer's property is either it's currently listed for sale in active status or will be listed for sale within 3 business days. If the property is already in pending status, we don't use this form. We don't use this form. We just write into the deal that the property, their purchase, your buyer's purchase, is contingent upon close of escrow of this property, and their property is already in contract, past home inspections, ready to close. So this document is only used when it's either needs to be listed or is listed without an offer. You can write in here the contingency will expire at 5 p.m. on a specific day unless removed by the buyer using this notice to seller. We'll go over that in a second. And then the timeline for closing. The closing of the transaction shall be how many calendar days after the date buyer delivers the notice to seller or another specific date. And here's where we can talk about contingencies and timeframes. So the timeline set forth in the financing section shall continue unchanged. In other words, your buyer is still going to apply for their loan. They're going to do everything they need to get that loan in place, except for the contingencies on review of documents, professional inspection, lead paint, and other non-contingent timelines except closing shall either begin 1, the business day following mutual acceptance of the contingent offer, or commence on the next business day following the date the buyer delivers to the seller the notice to seller. So in the midst of a multiple offer scenario, starting the business day following mutual acceptance is stronger. So in other words, we have a buyer who feels very confident that their home will get in contract as quickly as possible. So they're going to start their timelines. They're going to put money out for a home inspection. They're going to put money out in any other kind of inspection they need to do, and they're willing to move forward on review, get rid of all the contingencies as much as possible, except for close and getting their home into contract. So this one is being used more than I've seen before, this line 20 being checked. Mostly, we would check line 21, commence on the next business day following the date the buyer delivers to the seller that their home is now in contract. So in a multiple offer scenario in which your buyer has to sell their home in order to purchase their new property and their home is not yet in contract, have this discussion with them on line 20. Do you want to be do you want to run the risk of losing money in a home inspection? Making your offer as strong as possible because you need to remove as many contingencies as possible. And so it's important to think about that and have that discussion with your client. Your client may be out money for a home inspection, but at least they may be in the game or maybe winning the multiple offer. So the notices that are used are here. The buyer notice to seller, that document is right here. And that is a contingent right to purchase, the notice to seller that the buyer would use, in which, one, they've got an accepted offer on their property, and they're agreeing to keep the seller informed of the developments of the transactions related to the buyer's ability to meet the contingency. Or two, the buyer has listed buyer's property for sale but has not accepted an offer, but is removing the contingencies related to the sale. In other words, the buyer has another means of purchasing the property. And this is important for the buyer in a multiple offer scenario, and the seller has accepted their contingent right. Now, all of a sudden, they're going to be bumped. In that case, you've got to make sure this is delivered very promptly. Now, bumping based upon the contingent right to purchase is not written into this document. It used to be in our old document that it said right in here that the home will be noticed, will be placed in contingent bumpable in MLS. They removed that from this document here this year. So in other words, if the seller accepts the buyer's offer using this contingent right to purchase addendum and it hasn't countered anything in there, that seller needs to put that home as pending in MLS. Now, if you're putting on your seller's hat and you're representing the seller in a situation like this, and the buyer has offered a contingent right to purchase based upon the fact that the buyer has to sell their home, the best way of protecting your seller, and the seller likes this offer, would be to counter and say the seller is countering that they're happy with everything else, but they're going to say that home will be placed in contingent bumpable status in MLS. Because again, this document does not permit that anywhere. So just to protect your seller in the scenario, because they want to be able to entertain other offers, having it in contingent bumpable status is really important. Say you've done that, and now the home is in contingent bumpable status, and you've gotten another offer. So now this is the notice that is used to the buyer to say the seller's received another offer, and now they have, you know, a couple of days to get rid of that contingency. So in other words, what you're saying is it's now, this is the delivery to the seller, excuse me, the delivery from the seller to the buyer, that we now have another offer in place. So now the buyer can either give notice that we have accepted another offer on our property, we've accepted an offer, and now we have to remove the contingency except for closing. Or two, they've listed the property for sale, not accepted an offer and removing the contingency. Or three, we have to terminate because we can't move forward. So these are the documents that are used in this scenario. Does anyone have questions on this? If so, unmute your mic and ask a question before we move on to the next thing. Any questions, anybody? Great. Okay, if not, let's move on to what's happening in the market. So I hope everyone can see this. The data has just been posted now for August. And for August, this is InfoSparks out of MLS. And what I have done is I have pulled up August information, and I won't do my trend market report yet because the beginning of the month, some brokerages are a little slow posting their data, so it changes in the first few weeks. But in the meantime, you can at least see what's happening. So if you look at, this is homes for sale in August. So each of these bars is just August. And you can see that in August of 2018, we had 974 homes for sale. In 2019, we had 946. But in 2020, we had 145 homes for sale. That's it. New listings that hit the market. Now, they were pretty even. But this is what happened. Pending sales. If you look at this, everything went pending. We had 258 pending sales August of 2018, 255 in 2019, but 575 pendings in 2020. This is, as we have all seen, there is no inventory. The data I'm looking at is just Bend. So this is 97701, 02, and 03, single family on less than an acre. So no acreage property, no farms, anything like that. This is what's happened. This is our months of supply. So in 2018, we had 4.6 months of supply, 2019, 5 months, 2020. Look at this, we have less than a month's supply. We have 0.6 of a month's worth of inventory, which is why multiple offers are happening. It is absolutely crazy what we're seeing in the market. I know that if we get a listing, we are expecting multiple offers on it right now. And it doesn't matter what price point, it's happening all over the board. I know every day I've got brokers handing in dead deals because they were one of 10 offers, one of 5 offers that didn't make it. So the question here is, how can we best represent our clients, represent our buyers, so that their offer is the one that's accepted? And it's challenging. It is super challenging. I'm sure all of you guys are carefully looking at coming soon in MLS, looking to see what's coming on board. It has not yet hit the market. If you aren't a member of Facebook, if for no other reason than to look at Central Oregon Haves and Wants, I would recommend that highly. Central Oregon Haves and Wants is where brokers will post new listings that are coming, that are not yet even in coming soon. They have to do it within a very short period of time, within one business day after you put it in Central Oregon Haves and Wants. It has to be somewhere in MLS. But say you put it in Central Oregon Haves and Wants on Friday, it doesn't have to show up in coming soon in MLS until Monday, because it's at one business day. So look at Central Oregon Haves and Wants in Facebook, join that group, and see what people might be marketing as coming soon. Find out about it and maybe connect with that broker and see if you can somehow get in there ahead of anybody else. We're having some of our buyers offer sight unseen simply because they can't make it up here that quickly. They're out of the area, but we are successful in getting people in contract sight unseen. We have brokers who are doing video tours. If the listing doesn't have a Matterport, we're asking, this is really important though, guys, make sure you ask the listing agent if it's okay for you to do a video tour yourself on your phone as you walk through it. I've heard of some sellers who are vehemently opposed and angry when they hear this has happened to them because they may have personal stuff down. They don't want that. They don't want a video tour done of any sort. So make sure if you're going to do that, ask the listing agent for permission to do that before you do it. But video tours can make it happen. See if you can get your buyers to jump up there. Even right from the very beginning, see if they can offer 5,000 to 10,000 over asking price right from the start before it's even hit the market. We have one of our brokers who's been doing that very successfully, offering 10,000 over asking price right from the start, and has won the multiple offer right on day one as soon as the thing hits the market. Now, in some cases, we have sellers who are saying we're going to entertain all offers on 3 days. So when you get a situation like that, obviously the seller is going to be getting more and different offers to check out. I know this is controversial, the escalation. However, we have had success in utilizing the escalation clause. Last week, no, 2 weeks ago, I attended a forms committee meeting. I had never gone to one of those before. This is where the forms committee gets together and discusses changes. they were at that point discussing whether or not ORF should incorporate an escalation clause addendum. And there was one person who was on the forms committee who was vehemently opposed, basically saying because of the escalation clause, if it's utilized in a contract, you're basically telling the seller, this is what the buyer is willing to offer. So, and that is absolutely true. The seller can come back and counter that escalation clause individual and say sales price to be whatever is the top end of their escalation clause. That is always an option, and when you're representing a seller, that is a viable option for your client. Recognize that still the home has to appraise, and when you come back with a counter offer, the buyer doesn't have to accept it still. So it can win, it cannot win, but a lot of our buyers have also utilized the escalation clause extremely successfully, in that if you read this verbiage here, the buyer will increase the offer by, say, $1,000. That's usually used, $1,000 more than any modified or good faith competing offer made for this address property, an amount not to exceed whatever is their top figure. And the buyer must be provided with a copy of the competing offer, together with a bank pre-qualification and pre-approval letter demonstrating to the buyer's sole satisfaction that the second buyer is qualified to purchase the address at the price set forth in the competing offer. This line right here, this offer shall remain effective until 5 days after the date of this offer, is a little confusing to a lot of people. If you want to take that out, feel free. Basically, what that means is that the seller has 5 days after accepting our buyer's offer with the escalation to provide proof of the other offer. But if it's too confusing, take it out. And then prior to increasing the purchase price pursuant to this paragraph, the total of all seller concessions and any separate consideration for personal property provided for in the competing offer shall be deducted from the purchase price contained in said offer. And again, this verbiage I got at an OAR convention, and it was verbiage from the Michigan Association of Realtors. So we have some sellers out there who say, we don't want to deal with escalation clauses, and that's totally fine. They may come back and say, bring me your highest and best. And that's a viable option. Remember, the seller doesn't have to accept any offer that's given to them. They don't have to accept an escalation clause. The benefit to your buyer when you utilize the escalation clause is that you are going to potentially win the offer within the budget of your buyer and not overpay. And we've had this happen a lot of times this year since we've been hitting the multiple offers. Making sure, again, that this is utilized. If it doesn't fit in the forms, in the blanks in the purchase agreement, and it doesn't, where you have additional provisions or in the financing section, say C addendum escalation. And then this is where you would write this verbiage in here. Again, the tricky thing is when you have a seller who receives multiple offers with multiple escalation clauses. Then as a listing agent, you have to figure out which one is the best offer. So it takes a little bit of math, it takes a little bit of discussion, and obviously doing what's best for your seller. I have to tell you guys, in this market, we have a number of sellers who say, I don't want to deal with multiple offers. I'll take the first offer that's anywhere close to my asking price, and I'm happy to be done with it. With COVID, they don't want to have a lot of people coming in and out of their home. They're just willing to get it done, move on, and be happy with it. So making your offer as strong as possible by utilizing an escalation clause may be a key towards winning the multiple offer. Offering right from the start over asking price, $5,000 to $10,000 over. Keeping the offer clean as possible. So don't put any weird contingencies in there, such as contingent upon buyers viewing the property. You know, they haven't seen the property, you've done your video tour, your buyers are out of town, you did your video tour, but the listing agent said it was fine with the seller to do that. Your buyers love the house, they've offered it sight and scene, but don't write that into the offer, contingent upon them seeing the house. Well, that's a contingency. So the fewest contingencies you possibly can write into your offer, the better. Your buyers still have an out, even if they haven't seen the home, and all the standard outs. They have the out based upon review of the preliminary title report and supporting documents, the CC&Rs, all that. They have the out based upon review of the disclosure statement. They have the out based upon the home inspection, and they still have their financing out. So eliminate any contingencies possible. Utilize a local lender as much as possible. In the situation in which you have a lot of multiple offers, the listing agent will say, well, I know this local lender, this local lender, if they say they can get it done in 30 days, they can get it done. This is a good, strong offer. But we are also having a situation in which we have cash offers often winning out over those that require loans. Even a cash offer that is less than the offer with a loan is sometimes winning out. The concern when you go too much over asking price is, will the home appraise? And up until yesterday, in this crazy market, I hadn't heard of any of our offers not appraising outside of something for a lot. But yesterday we did have a house not appraised. We have the buyer in a scenario, and so we're at a point of trying to negotiate the price based upon the appraisal. And I don't know for sure how that's all going to turn out. But we have sellers who are writing inflated offers. Putting out inflated figures on their list price. But with the market as it is right now, these things are normally, they are appraising. In this one case, the seller noted some extra bonus area as square footage in the property, and the appraiser disallowed it because the only access to this bonus area was through a pull-down ladder. And even though the bonus area had been finished and it was nice, they didn't allow it because it wasn't accessed through normal means. So that's the scenario in that case. That's, again, the only one I've heard of as that did not appraise yet. But this is very, very helpful information. Another thing I've seen people do, and I've talked about this before, is to try to make your offer as desirable as possible to the buyer. Let's see, something's happened.
Hey, Linnea.
Yeah. Hi.
Can you hear me?
I sure can.
So I have a question. My brother's a principal broker up in Portland, and what they're doing up there now is they're putting in a sentence that says, we waive the appraisal contingency.
Yeah. And that is a viable option. But remember, when you do that, you're removing a contingency from your offer, which is good. But if the home doesn't appraise, your client, runs the risk of losing their earnest money if they can't cough up the extra money. We do have people writing into offers that they are waiving the appraisal, and they have to cough up the extra money to make it happen. So in a lot of situations like this, however, Debbie, the concern is, okay, so the home didn't appraise, the buyer is going to have to cough up an extra $20,000, $30,000 to purchase this property out of pocket. Does that change their loan to debt ratio more so that they won't even qualify for the loan? I mean, I don't know. But that's a viable option too. Again, remember, removing as many contingencies as possible may make your offer stronger in this situation. Yeah. I've even seen people waiving the home inspection. Again, I would never, ever, ever recommend that, because home inspections, what if they discover after the fact, after they purchase this home, that there's mold all over inside that house? It's going to be the issue of your buyer now to take on that repair, or that the roof needs to be replaced in 5 years and they hadn't budgeted for that, or they hadn't had the opportunity to negotiate. But yes, getting rid of as many contingencies as possible is a way of handling this. The other thing is to touch on someone's heartstrings by, this is a concern though. By writing a letter, the buyer's writing a letter, and they talk about who they are and how they want to buy this home, and they're very much in love with the property, envision raising their family, all that, to touch on someone's heartstrings. The problem is fair housing issues. Because remember, the seller cannot be taking any of that into consideration, anything that would violate fair housing. Say they want to take the offer of this family over the offer of a single guy. That is a violation because it touches on their heartstrings. That's a violation of fair housing. They need to be neutral when they evaluate who is purchasing their property. But if you're representing a buyer, it's one of those things that may make a difference. It's one of those things, if you've read the last real estate agency journal, they do warn about that. They really do. But that is something that may make something stand out. Does anyone else have some thoughts about this?
Lene, this is Catherine.
Hey, Catherine.
So yesterday at the MLS meeting, there was an agent in there talking about that as well, the Fair Housing Act. And she said what she is doing with her clients is just if they write a letter just to focus on the house and what they like about the house and not talk about themselves and don't put a picture in there.
Yeah, yeah. And that is recommended too. The real estate agent said definitely don't include a picture because, you know, someone who loses out could say you accepted, here's a fair housing issue, you accepted that white family instead of that minority family. And that could be basis of a lawsuit, you know, in a situation like this. So yeah, talk about, that's a good idea, Catherine. Focus on what's so wonderful about the house.
Yeah,
Great.
I thought so too. And I have several clients writing offers now, especially because of competitive situations. So I thought that was really helpful.
Yeah, yeah. We've had people within our office representing buyers offer over 100,000 over asking price and still lose out. These are high-end properties, but still losing out. We've had other people in which we've represented buyers, in which we've represented sellers who did not take the offer that was 105 over asking, but they did take the one that was 70,000 over asking. The reason they didn't take the 105 over asking was because it was a loan, and there was concern that even though that buyer wrote in an addendum that they were to cough up the extra money, there was concern, again, that they wouldn't then qualify for the loan with that much of a difference. They took the cash offer that was 70,000 over asking. So these are all things for people to consider when you're representing a buyer in a multiple offer scenario, or when you're representing a seller in a multiple offer scenario. Again, I'd say keep the offer as clean as possible, as few contingencies as possible. If you can make, as Cinda suggested, a very short closing, as short as possible for that buyer, unless it's in the benefit of the seller to stay longer. And we've had people also write into their offers that they're going to allow the seller to stay rent-free for 3 weeks after closing to move out. And if that accommodates the need of that seller, that works. That's a win-win-win. And we've won the offers that way as well. Does anyone else have any stories that they can share with us about what's happened when they've been working through this crazy market?
Yes. Recently, I called Jim Bertola and said, I've got some buyers that want to make an offer on your property. And he said, have they seen it? And I said, no. He said, well, we won't accept an offer unless they've seen the house. And fortunately, they were local, so he dashed over and looked at the house. But how would you handle something like that?
I always wonder when I hear something like that, I always say, is that the agent talking or is it the seller talking? I don't know. We represent our client. Is it in our client's best interest to get an offer, even if the buyer hasn't seen the property? Yeah. When it comes to a multiple offer scenario, however, and you're evaluating these different offers, will you accept? Is a seller more prone to accept an offer in which the buyer has walked through the house, seen it, versus one who's not seen it and still has doubts? I would think one who's actually physically been in the house would be a better situation. Though sometimes price can overcome that if they've offered higher than everybody else. That's a hard one, because again, if your buyer's not in the area, how can they get there that quickly? with things disappearing so quickly. If they're out of town, they can't drop everything and fly out here or drive out here. If they're in San Francisco, you know, it will take them at least 24 hours to get here. So,
Right.
yeah, how can we represent them in this situation? So in the case of your clients, Colleen, did they like the house?
They did like the house, and so we did write an offer, but I was a little bit taken aback by his statement because I thought, well, what if they were out of town? We wouldn't be able to do it. And I'm not going to lie to him and say, oh, we've seen it when they hadn't. But anyway, I just wondered if that's common or how other people handle that.
We have deals in contract right now in which our buyers have never physically been in the home, but they were the strongest offer and they were accepted. So we have one situation in which we're like this close to closing, and we've already gotten through all contingencies, so there's nothing left, and the buyers have not even been in the home yet.
Oh, and they still haven't seen the home?
Pardon me?
They still haven't seen the home?
No, they're going to see it this week, and we're like 3 or 4 days off from closing. So, yeah, in a market like this, this is the reality. Again, if your clients haven't seen the home, they would still have their normal outs, home inspection, all that sort of stuff. They come in and decide, hey, this house doesn't work for us after all. Recognizing you'd have to terminate based upon legitimate means. We've also had situations in which, in one case, we just got into contract on another property in which the seller had lost the first people who had been in position and kept their $7,000 earnest money. For whatever reason, these people couldn't perform or backed out of the contract. And for whatever reason, that seller was able to keep that earnest money. So recognizing that, that's a big concern too. If you write an offer in such a way that your buyer wins, but for whatever reason, the house doesn't work for them and they need to terminate, we need to make sure our buyers are still protected with their earnest money, because sellers are sometimes being very, very pushy on this whole thing and say, earnest money to be non-refundable and released to me after home inspection or after appraisal. I'm seeing more and more the earnest money to be released after home inspection. So again, what if the house doesn't appraise and the buyer can't perform? They've lost that money. Is a buyer willing to take that risk? That creates a stronger offer for them, however, in a multiple offer situation. They agree to have earnest money non-refundable and released. That seller walked away with $7,000. Now, they wrote the same, our client entered into contract with the same sort of terms. That seller was very happy with winning that $7,000 and now our client is willing to run that risk as well. So hopefully we will close, but that's the reality of what we're seeing here as well. Any other ideas, guys? Anyone else have some stories to share about that, what they've seen, what they've done?
I have something on the new construction side.
Yeah.
So I've had 2 deals in the last 40 days that were new construction. One, we were in escrow for over a year, and the other, we're in month 5 of 7 months build. My clients and I have had multiple walkthroughs and meetings, so lots of time on the file. And in both situations, the seller's agent asked me if we were willing to terminate. So they're getting greedy now that it's a year later and it's a seller's market and they can get more for the home. I was just shocked that after all the time and work into it, they asked that. And the first one backed off after we said, definitely not, we're not terminating. The second agent, Becky Breeze, she asked not 1, but 3 times over a period of a week, are your clients willing to back out? So there's greed out there with these new builders who started during a slow period, and now they're seeing the big numbers go up.
Yeah, and that's very true, Diane. Also, if you note, it was in the paper a couple of days ago, and my husband's told me the same thing. Lumber prices have gone up 20 to 30%. So when you are building a home from a year ago, or say you entered into contract months before you actually were able to get your permit pulled and get started on the construction, the cost to build that home has gone up. And so from a builder's perspective, they agreed in good faith to enter into contract on a certain set price, but their costs have gone up as well. So they're making less money than they normally would have on the build job. And that's the risk you run when you're a builder. Unless you somehow build that into your contract, such as buyer agrees to raise price, the builder's costs go up exponentially or whatever. But I don't believe that's a standard thing in a contract right now for builders. It may become something like that.
But I don't feel that sorry for him, because in the case of Base Camp, he closed 6 months later than promised because he didn't have the funds to build out this, the fourplex there. So he wanted to sell all 4 units before he continued. So he stalled the progress by 6 months. And if costs went up during that time, he shouldn't have played that game.
And absolutely right. He's probably smarter now, smarter and wiser, but maybe not. In the case of your client, they got the home with instant equity, which is really great. It's really great for them. But yeah, along the same line with new construction, I hope everyone understood my email regarding protecting our clients in the situation with new construction when the seller is not the licensed and bonded contractor or developer. It's been something I have to bring up like every 6 months or so, just simply because this is happening all the time. And we have people who don't understand. I think in a lot of cases, it's just ignorance. They don't know what Oregon law is regarding a joint venture in which they contracted with a builder to build a home as a spec. But in Oregon, because in Washington state, it's legal to do that. In a lot of other states, it's legal to do it, but in Oregon, it's not. And so last week, I actually had a conversation with the Construction Contractors Board concerning this. And I said, you guys, you have not done a good job as the Contractors Board to inform the public about this law, because people are entering into contract in good faith to purchase property that is built by a general contractor, and it's a great house, well built. They're very happy, but the seller, being that they are not a licensed and bonded contractor, there's no protection for our buyer in the event there's a builder issue in that home, and they need to go after the bond or the insurance policy of that builder. Because they're not in the contract, the CCB can't enforce anything. And that's why that verbiage you write into the contract in which you say that buyer and seller, you name who they are, recognize that builder and name who the builder is, has built this home and the address for the benefit of the buyer, and again, name the buyer. If the name of the builder is in the contract somewhere, the CCB will enforce the builder's bond and insurance policy in the event there's a builder issue. So be very, very conscientious of that. If you see, say you see Hayden Homes as the builder, or their DBA of Simplicity Homes, as the seller, you're fine. If you ever question something like some odd LLC, look them up on the Construction Contractors Board. If they're not licensed there, look at, there's an easy way to search for licensees. Look up that LLC that's there as the seller. If they're not there, they are not a licensed builder or developer. And so at that point, you need to have the conversation with your client, and also have a conversation with the listing agent. In my email that I sent to everybody last week, I actually did share with you, I had talked with 3 different principal brokers concerning this issue, and they were all ignorant. they did not know the law. And these are principal brokers who've been in the business for decades. So it's a lack of advertisement on the part of the CCB. It's also, in some cases, if it's pointed out to them, it's willfully ignoring the law. But again, to protect our buyers in these situations, we need to make sure that verbiage is in the contract, and or that seller is actually a licensed and bonded contractor. So just be aware of that. Any questions on that, guys? Did you all understand that? No questions on that? Okay. Okay, that's great.
Hey,
So-
Linnea,
Yeah,
can
Tina.
you talk in regards to a seller who has made an offer on a property, but then they have their house for sale, and not being able to accept a contingency offer on that?
So the seller has made an offer on a replacement property.
Yes.
And their home, is their home in contract?
No, their house is listed, but there are buyers that are interested in it, but they are either under contract on their current house or it would be a contingent offer. And so my understanding is this seller would not be able to take a contingent offer because their offer is already contingent on their house selling.
Right, unless the seller of the new house, the replacement property, is willing to accept that house of cards. Because remember, on that contingent right to purchase document, it says that the buyer will not accept a contingent offer on their home unless the seller agrees to it. Now, if the home is in contract, however, say those buyers who are hovering around looking at that, if their home is in contract, then that's fine. That's not considered per the new verbiage in the contingent right to purchase a contingent. It's pending. It's considered pending. But again, you have to keep the seller of that new replacement property informed of the status. So say that their home is in pending status, and the buyer of that home has their home in pending status. So keeping it informed is important. But if along that line we end up with one of the parties, their home is just listed and not in contract. That happened to us, believe it or not, Tina. We had a scenario in which we had this exact same scenario. Everything was pending, and then someone's house fell out of pending status. It had to go back on the market. It put up brakes on everything until we could actually, we ended up finally closing on it all. But it was truly a house of cards. One card topples, the whole stack falls down. Did I explain that well enough?
Yes, yeah, you did. It's just difficult to convince buyers to get their house on the market or get their house sold because sellers are not going to take a contingent offer.
Yeah, in this market right now, I am seeing people write into contracts that when you have a seller, that seller's acceptance of buyer's offer is contingent upon seller successfully closing on replacement property. So in other words, we're protecting our seller in a situation that they can accept an offer, and now then they can look forward on a purchase saying, yes, our home is already in contract. And then getting that buyer who's in contract on their home to remove as many contingencies as possible so that when they move forward, so when our seller moves forward on the replacement property, they can say, yeah, our home is already through home inspection. It's through appraisal. It's just ready to close. We just need to get us into contract now on something. And there's enough buyers out there jumping on anything that they're willing to accept that kind of contingency from their seller. Yeah. Anyone else with something like that? One thing else I wanted to mention here, this is off the Where is it? Can't find it right now. It's probably behind here. There it is. Right here. When we get a lead coming in on our REW situation, I've been talking with our brokers about what seems to be most effective. And I've got people, you accept that lead and then you immediately make that phone call. Immediately make that phone call. So hopefully when the lead comes in, you've accepted it and then you've called them and hopefully you've connected right away. The success rate of actually connecting with a client is exponentially higher when that is the process that you guys deal with. Accept the lead and then immediately call. The problem comes when that lead has gone through multiple agents because you haven't picked up. So I would ask you guys, if there's a reason why, say you are, let's see here, right here. So say there's a reason why you're not at a place to accept a lead, you're at an appointment, you're out to dinner, you're on vacation, something like that. I would ask you guys to take this lead thing and turn it off and save it. So that way the lead will go to someone who's able to respond right away. So if you can do that, this button right here, auto assign, rotate, opt-in, say no, and then hit the green button here to save your changes. That way the leads will not go to you. When you're available again to accept the lead, by all means, turn yourself back on. So that way you can accept them. That way, the chances that someone within our brokerage is ready and available right then and there to accept a lead, as soon as that person registers, the chance that they'll be able to, at that point, connect quicker happens. So this is just good for all of us so that we have more potential sales coming into our office. Because if you're not available to accept that lead, you're going to miss it anyway. So that would be very, very helpful for us. Any questions on that? Okay. The other thing I think is important to be aware of is the importance, again, of keeping in touch with your clients. I can't, again, emphasize that enough. I know we spent a lot of time at the beginning of this year talking about the importance of maintaining connections with your past clients because the majority of your business will come from your past clients. And if you keep in touch with them, you regularly connect, I am finding that those brokers who are doing that, their business is booming right now. They are the ones who are getting listings, they're getting buyer leads, they're getting referrals, they're getting all kinds of stuff happening from their past clients. They're so busy, they have no time for floor. They have no time to do anything outside of working with what they already have. And in some cases, like they need additional help, what can we do to help them? So keeping in touch, keeping in connection. And, you know, we have those marketing tools, we have Imprev, we have Cloud CMA, we have the Bear Printing, our newsletter that we put out regularly. If you have your set list, sending that newsletter out regularly to people. Connecting with these people is how you build your business and how you keep the pipeline going for the future as well. And for those of you who are doing it, you're doing a great job. And if those of you who aren't and you need some additional help and tricks and things like that, I'm happy to help you with that. So please let me know how we can assist you on that. I've got Brittany who can help you set up your contacts list, help set you up in some regular marketing, various things that we can do to help with that. It's as we move forward and we're in a very, very competitive market. I can't tell you enough how important it is for us to keep this going, even when you're super busy, because before you know it, it's going to be fall and it'll be winter, and I would think things are going to slow down. Traditionally, they do, but who knows right now. This has been the craziest market I've ever seen. As I said, less than a month's supply of inventory in Bend. And if we get listings, that's the key in this market right now. Any listings we get, they're selling. This week alone, we are closing over 40 deals this week between Monday through Friday is what's booked. We had 8 closings yesterday. I've never had that many closings the first day of the month before in one day. And we have a lot of things happening within our brokerage, guys. It's wonderful, but a key right now is those listings. So listings come from past clients, from people that you've sold something to in the past. So the better we are at keeping connected with our past clients, the more likely we are to get those listings. And that's a key right now. When we have more sales than we have listings coming on board. I'd like to open up now for anything else that you guys want to talk about. Any haves or wants, anything that we can chat about. Hope everyone got information from Angeli on her new listing coming on board on Billadoo. Anything from anybody else? Haves or wants, buyer wants.
Can I ask a totally different question, Linnea?
Of course, Jane.
I have floor next Tuesday at 2 o'clock, and I'm meeting a client down in Sun River at 1 o'clock. I'm not going to be able to make it, so I'm just throwing it out there to anybody if they would like to take floor time 2 till 4 next Tuesday. And happy Labor Day, everybody.
Awesome. Next Tuesday,
2 to 4.
You're on schedule 3 to 5.
Oh, I am?
Yeah, 3 to 5.
That's because I put it into my calendar when I was in Montana, and they're an hour ahead, and my calendar doesn't recognize that. I should be able to make it. I can't guarantee, but I should be able to. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Bye.
Great, thanks, Jane. Just to give you guys also a heads up, this month I did not put any floors together for 5 to 7, just because we're moving into fall. But if the weather is good and there's plenty of tourists around here, if you want to come into the office and hold it open between 5 and 7, feel free. Anybody who wants to do that. Talk with one of our brokers who had gone to a happy hour downtown and was coming back to her car, walked by our office, and there were people in that 5 to 7 time frame congregated looking at flyers in the window, and she talked to them and she made a connection. So there are people still around downtown, and again, she wasn't scheduled to do anything, just happened to come by and saw that. So there are opportunities if you wish to do that. Just be aware of it.
Hi, Linnea. Yeah, it's Angeli.
Yeah, hi, Angeli.
So I know that email went out yesterday, but yeah, I just wanted to kind of reiterate. I'm going live on Friday, maybe Thursday night, most likely Friday, but it's 9.55 acres on Billadoo, 8 acres of irrigation. The house is 5,207 square feet, 5 bedroom, 4 full bath, 2 half bath, huge shop. Yeah, there's just a lot of things going on with that property. So yeah, if anybody has any questions or any interest, just give me a call, shoot me a text, email, anything. So yeah, that's all I
Angeli,
got.
I just left you a message asking if I can show it today. Check your message if you don't mind. This is Elizabeth.
Okay, Elizabeth. I saw that I had a call, but I was trying to not get back to it till after the meeting. But yeah, no problem. I'll listen to it and I'll give you a holler once we're done here.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Okay, thanks, Elizabeth.
I have 4 buyer needs, and all of them have primary homes, so there's no rush if you have a listing coming up soon. The first one's up to 550, prefers west side or the east side of quiet area, open floor plan, newer kitchen. The second one is up to 450, single woman, so it could be a smaller home, prefers the east side, and oddly enough, she likes older homes and needs room out back for a greenhouse. Number 3 is wanting a condo in Bend or townhouse with strong rental income up to $825,000. And the fourth one is up to $1 million, just wants bare land and privacy anywhere in Central Oregon, prefers a treed lot, so either privacy or views. He even likes Powell Butte and further out, up to $1 million. So if you have anything coming up, all four have primary homes, so they're not in a huge hurry if you have something a month away or whatever.
That bare land, is bare land up to $1 million?
Yeah, or with a tear down on it, so he doesn't have to pay for, basics like water and septic.
Wow, okay.
I know. He owns a huge business in Reno and he loves it out here and has relatives out here. And so he just wants a place to build a really nice lodge style home on a treed lot is his goal.
Wow, okay.
So good luck. There's inventory is terrible, but if you have anything, please call Diane.
All right, Diane, thank you so much. Anybody else with anything? Okay, well, if not, thank you, everybody. And let me know how we can help.